So I recently made a video talking about what makes a classic movie, and what recent movies from the last decade might become classics in the future. And during the making of this video, I compiled a huge list of movies that I thought might make the cut. But I also made a smaller list of movies I really liked but no one talks about. Movies I'm afraid might actually be forgotten and won't even make it into cult classic status. But that in my opinion absolutely deserve to, because they're really good. So I decided to make a separate video, this video, highlighting all those movies, in hopes of perhaps shining a little bit of light on them, and potentially exposing them to a new audience. Now, disclaimer, these are generally slightly weird movies, and definitely not for everyone. But if you have an open mind, I would recommend you check them out. And without further ado, let's just dive into it. The Black Coat's Daughter. This is the feature-length debut by Os Perkins, and to this day probably my favorite of his movies. And I might be wrong, but I think I saw Mike from Red Letter Media recommend it. And that's probably the only time I've ever heard anyone mention it. And it's just this weird slow burn of a movie that follows these two girls at a boarding school during a winter break, and some weird stuff starts happening. So it's basically holdovers with some spooky stuff, and I genuinely loved it. It's great. Christine. Alright, so this one's a doozy. It's based on a real story of a TV reporter on some sort of local station in Florida, I think. And she's struggling with depression, and she feels stuck in her career as well. And Rebecca Hall just delivers a crazy performance. I mean, she just knocked it out of the park here. And I haven't been able to stop thinking about this movie for the better part of a decade now. I mean, I can't get it out of my head, because it's a certified banger. Love and Friendship. And now for something completely different. This is a Jane Austen adaptation, starring Kate Beckinsale. And it is absolutely hilarious. Easily one of the funniest movies that year, and the one that made me realize that Kate Beckinsale has some serious comedic chops. I had no idea, but her timing and delivery is just flawless. And yeah, this one's just a good time, and I never hear anyone mention it, despite it being a standout comedy from the last 10 years. The Eyes of My Mother. This is actually one of two movies on the list by Nicolas Pesce, and no, I didn't plan that. In fact, I didn't even realize it until I went through the final draft. But this one is a wild one, and by that I mean my Letterboxd review for it is only one word: damn. And I stand by that review because that's exactly what I felt when the credits rolled. Just damn. This movie is something else, man, and if you're up for a challenge, give this one a try. Brigsby Bear. So this is another comedy, starring Kyle Mooney, and it's about a guy who's basically been locked in a bunker for his entire life with only one TV show to watch. And since that's his only frame of reference, he loves it, and so he sets out to make a movie based on it. And yeah, it's absurd and it's funny, but it also has a lot of heart, and is actually really heartwarming too. I loved it, and you should probably watch it. Border. In a list full of weird, unique movies, this one's firmly its own brand of strange. It's a Swedish movie that taps into Nordic folklore and puts an interesting twist on it, because it essentially asks the question, what if trolls were real? And not the kind of trolls you see in a lot of fantasy movies, but human-like creatures that live in the woods. And what if they were a sort of minority that tried to integrate with human society? Yeah, as I said, it's a weird one, but definitely worth checking out. Thunder Road. Written, directed and starring Jim Cummings. This is another absolutely hilarious movie, with a lot of heart at the core too. I went into this knowing nothing about it or Jim Cummings, and came out of it ready to watch basically whatever he makes or is involved with. He's so good in this, and the writing is just so sharp that he completely won me over. And his other movies are definitely worth checking out too. But I think this is still his best one to date. Utøya, July 22. Okay, so I feel like this one actually needs a bit of a disclaimer, because it's one of the most harrowing and chilling movies I've ever seen. It's a Norwegian film about a mass shooting that took place on a small island, where a bunch of kids were attending camp, and it's shot in real time as the events progressed from the perspective of the kids. And it's genuinely terrifying, and not for the faint of heart, but also a really unique and well-made film. Damsel. No, not that Damsel. Definitely not the one with Millie Bobby Brown, but the Robert Pattinson western you probably haven't seen. Also starring Mia Wasikowska, who is perfectly cast in this one as the proverbial damsel, which you probably shouldn't really take literally, because this is a dark comedy, and yet another kind of weird movie, that isn't afraid to subvert your expectations. I don't know, I just thought this was a really funny and memorable movie, and I literally never hear anyone mention it, which is a shame, so I'm shining a little bit of light on it here. Piercing. The second movie on this list starring Mia Wasikowska, and also the second film by Nicolas Pesce as well. And who would have guessed that it's a weird one, but also very memorable and striking movie visually. The sets are very stylized and I loved it, and the two central performances are very intense too. It's sort of a psychological thriller, I guess, or I don't know what you'd describe it as, and it takes some interesting twists and turns. It's also only like 80 minutes, so it's not gonna waste your time, so check it out. Bait. This one's on here mainly just because of how unique and different it felt. I think it's shot on 16mm film, and I believe the guy who made it, Mark Jenkin, developed the film himself, which I would say is kinda ballsy if that's all the footage you have. But at the same time, no other movie is gonna look and feel the same. And the fact that all the audio is kinda shoddily overdubbed just gives it an even more unique feel. But here's the thing, none of that would even matter if the movie itself wasn't actually good. Which it is. So I don't know, maybe check it out. Greener Grass. Here's yet another comedy, and one that came kinda out of left field for me and just instantly won me over. It's this strange surrealist comedy set in this suburban hellscape where people are just constantly comparing themselves to their neighbors and try to one-up each other, and it's also just so hyper stylized too that I haven't really seen anything that even looks like it before. I mean, the closest thing I could compare it to would probably be The Neighborhood in Edward Scissorhands, if you know what I'm referring to, which is definitely a good thing. Lousy Carter. Here we have another absolute gem, recommended once again by Mike from Red Letter Media. And this one has less than 1,000 ratings on IMDb. Yeah, no one's seen it, even after he's shown some light on it. So here I am, doing my part as well, because it deserves to be seen by many more people. It's once again a dark comedy, and I will say, it looks and feels pretty cheap, because it probably was. But the writing and the central performance by David Krumholtz is what carries this whole thing. And if you're into dark comedy, I would 100% recommend this. It's also only like 80 minutes, so what do you really have to lose? Sometimes I think about dying. This one stars Daisy Ridley from Star Wars fame, and I'll be honest, I didn't really have an opinion on her as an actor until I saw this movie. I think I'd seen her in Ophelia and Chaos Walking before, but neither one really made much an impression on me. This one, however, definitely did, because I loved it. It's a slow burn, it's kinda dark and a bit depressing, but I feel like it takes some risks, and takes some turns you might not expect. And Daisy Ridley is absolutely great in this, so probably check it out. Burt Rebirth. This one is way more bonkers than you might expect. It takes a little while to really get going, and before it goes full on crazy, but when it does, I think it's pretty great. And Marin Ireland in the lead is just so good too. But yeah, overall, this one's kinda perfect if you're looking for a low budget, high concept sci-fi movie that's not afraid to get a little wild with its ideas. Sasquatch Sunset. I would probably say that this one's the quirkiest movie on the list, because it literally follows a family of Sasquatch. Sasquatches? Sasquatches. I don't know, a Bigfoot family? But because big feet don't have human language, there's no actual dialogue here. So we have actors in monkey suits walking around the forest for an hour and a half. And those actors include Jesse Eisenberg and Riley Keough. But you know what? It's a funny movie. I didn't expect it to be, but it really is. It's absurd, it's weird, it includes the most aggressive pissing scene I've ever witnessed, but I kinda loved it. It's pretty great and you should probably watch it. And that concludes the list. And if you have some movies you think are overlooked and deserve to be seen, feel free to comment below because I will check them out. And if you enjoyed the video and would like to see more content like this, don't be afraid to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. But yeah, I think that's about it for today and see you next time.